Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is SewRena, and in today's video we're going to be doing something a little bit different here today. As you can tell from the title or the thumbnail, we are going to be making Barbie clothes. So I needed a little bit of a palette cleanser this week. So I wanted to do something very simple, very quick, not serious. So I decided, why don't I make an outfit for Barbie? I do have some patterns here, some advanced Barbie patterns, and then this McCall's one, and so I'm going to use these to recreate a look that I already have because I just wanted to use some scrap as well. So a no fuss, really easy, but something I hope is super fun. Let's show you the outfit we're recreating today. We're going with this outfit. It's my favorite. I'm so proud of it, and I have more than enough materials to recreate it in miniature. If you're interested in following me along for this process, go ahead and like and subscribe, and let's get into it. For the first pattern, we're going to be using Advanced, and there is no pattern number, so I'm assuming it's group A, and we're using view 6 for the coat. I decided to trace out this pattern since it's uncut, and I have no desire to have a bunch of tiny little doll pieces to keep up with, so I felt like it was just easier to go ahead and trace this coat pattern. This pattern is from 1961. I'll be using the coat pattern, and it's very similar to the shape of the swing coat that I made for myself. The only difference is that mine was like a raglan sleeve coat, and this one is not. You have to ease the sleeves in, and also there's a Peter Pan collar on it, which is very similar to mine originally because I used a house coat pattern which had an identical collar to this one, but I wanted that dagger styled collar, so I'm going to have to draft a new one for this pattern like I did mine. I'm not going to be switching up to a raglan sleeve because the point of this is to be more of like a craft project, something that doesn't take a whole lot of effort, but just pure fun. Once everything is traced out, I make sure to mark my seam allowance. The seam allowance for these patterns are 1/4 inch, and you want to be very careful that you pay attention to this because you don't want to make this too small. I feel like the pattern's already small enough. So then I take the pattern that I traced and I cut it out on the main fabric. I am going to line this because I feel like that was a very important feature to my outfit. This is not a lined outfit for Barbie. The inside is left raw, but we're gonna line ours because the lining is everything for this. That's like one of the design features, having the lining match the dress. Because this is supposed to be a no fuss project, I don't line the sleeves, just the parts that are going to show because the coat hangs open. So once I'm done doing this, I press the seam allowance on the coat, and I go up 5/8 seam allowance, I think it is, on the lining, and then I only do 1/4 on the outside coat. So basically I'm going to hand stitch this in, so the hem is first and then I'm going to interline the rest of it. So I'm not doing it like a traditional coat lining because I just feel like that's just too much in these teeny tiny spaces. And if you've ever made like children or babies clothes, you know that like dealing with those small armhole neck holes it's a bit difficult, and I can only imagine it's much worse when dealing with the tiny little Barbie outfit. If you are doing this at home and you don't have anything to match it with, you could just go ahead and sew this by machine, the seam allowance, but I wanted that little bit of a hem sticking out at the lower bottom similar to my actual outfit, so that's why I did it this way with a blind stitch to make it look like I had lined it in a traditional way. Now it's time to basically baste all of the pieces together, and at this point we want to follow the directions on the pattern because now everything is one and I'm not lining it, it's just interlining it from this point on. Now we are back to the cutting table and we're going to mark the fold lines and press this over, and also I just sandwiched it so that way the chalk could impress on the other side since they are a mirror image, and then I darken the line up with chalk here. Once that's done, I press everything flat and it's time to move on. We're going to start cutting the sleeves out. Even though I didn't want to line the sleeves, you could very well interline the sleeves so that way you can see into it, but I just don't think it's that serious because it's Barbie, and also I don't plan on playing with her. She really is a fashion doll to me, so I plan on just changing out her outfits periodically and photographing her outfits. Once the sleeves are pinned in, then you go in with 1/4 inch. Be very careful with doing this. This is so teeny tiny. I almost considered bringing out the featherweight for this project and take it around the house with me instead of sewing in my room. But even I just decided to do this instead of having to wind fresh bobbins or anything like that. So make sure you go ahead and clip the armhole. You're gonna really have to clip all the curves on this project because everything is just so tight that there's no getting away with it. So once you have your sleeves sewn on, then you're gonna put everything right sides together at the shoulder, and you're gonna sew the shoulder and the sleeves, and that should start looking more like a coat at this point. Then I drafted my new collar, and as you can see, it's a straight collar as opposed to the Peter Pan collar. And I actually got it right on the first try, which was really nice. Once the collar is put together, then it's time to put it onto the coat. And the coat actually has like a self-facing, so you sew that facing up and then put everything right sides together and sew that down. And we are that much closer to being done with this coat. This is the finished coat. I finished everything by hand, so I fold the facings in and hid the raw edges into the hem. The armholes are not lined, so I added a little bit of fray check to it so that way it wouldn't fray out any further. Now that that is done, it's time to move on to the dress, and I'm going to be using the bodice off of McCall's 6992, and fortunately for me, this does actually have a pattern number. This bodice is going to take a little bit of adjusting since my dress actually had a cutout in it. And also, to make my life a little bit easier, I went and grabbed my carbon paper and tracing wheel to get those little darts as perfect as possible, because I don't have a marking option with such a fine point that I can get these marked accurately. So the wheel really came in handy. It is time to sew up this teeny tiny bodice. The bodice is lined. Basically, this entire dress is lined. The bodice is lined, and the only raw edges on this piece will be around the waistline. Because of how I made it, I wasn't sure that I was going to line the skirt, but then I realized since I don't actually have a petticoat for her, that it would probably make sense to put the more stapled outer coat fabric underneath the skirt so that way it holds its shape, and that's exactly what happened. Also, lining the circle skirt, because I did draft a half circle skirt for her so that way she could have the seam down the center front like my skirt had. So making a lining for it meant I did not have to do a teeny tiny circle skirt hem, which those on a regular scale can already be a pain in the butt, and I was able to avoid that by just going ahead and lining the skirt. So that's the real reason I did that, on top of just giving it more body and fluff. This project was super fun, and I do think that if I was taking it a little bit more seriously, this could have been very stressful, because working with these teeny tiny spaces could be a pain in the butt, and it's really easy for it to go sloppy really quickly because you only have this teeny tiny like seam allowance, a quarter seam allowance, and if you're working with fabric that frays really bad, then it could fray past that easily. So I highly recommend that if you are going to tackle a project similar, that you go ahead and add, like if it's a polyester type fabric, then burn the edges, or go fray check the edges before sewing everything together so you can maintain the integrity of your seam allowance. I also love how all these Barbie clothes are exactly like the real deal style clothes. So if you needed to practice or learn how to sew and you didn't want to commit to a ton of fabric, this would be the perfect way to really understand the construction of a garment. Once I'm done with the skirt, I flip everything right side together, press it together, and then sew on the bodice to it. I don't have any closures, but it fits well enough that I don't think it matters. For Christmas last year, I bought myself a reproduction vintage Barbie. So this Barbie is modern, but they used the 1958 sculpt to make her, and it was a part of the holiday calendar, like the advent calendar Barbie. This is my very first vintage Barbie, and I'm so happy with her. She is adorable, and it's so nice to have her in an outfit that matches mine. If you have not already, please consider subscribing and liking this video. Also, leave me a little comment below. I'd love to chat. If you would like to support me any further, you can leave me a virtual tip over on Ko-fi or become a bobbin over on Patreon for exclusive content. Of course, the best way to support for free is to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!